Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Hello and welcome to Financial Planner, a show that takes you through, helps you understand about various aspects of equity markets, mutual funds and other investment categories. We've been talking about mutual funds for all the weeks before, but now this week is something that we will now get into the implementation, or rather execution stage. We've told you about what is a mutual fund. We've told you about, what are the ways or different kinds of mutual funds. How do you go about choosing it? But now let's go down to the basic step of how to invest in a mutual fund. What are the steps that one needs to follow? And we have a very special guest with us today, Hemant Rustagi. Hemant, thank you so much for joining us. We've told about, what is a mutual fund, how does it work, etc. But every time the biggest fear that remains in most of the investors' mind is that perhaps it will be too complicated for me to take those first steps and get into a mutual fund or invest or subscribe to it. Let's go into that, understanding that how do you invest in a scheme of mutual fund? So I have chosen where I want to invest. I have figured that, all my documents that are required, say a PAN card, etc. What is the first step forward?
Well, as we know that mutual fund provide a very, very simple mechanism of investing in different markets, be it debt market, equity market, or commodities like gold. And the best thing about a mutual fund is that investing in them itself is very, very simple. As you said, if somebody has already figured out where to invest and what kind of fund one wants to have in the portfolio, it's very simple. There are broadly three ways of investing in a mutual fund. One is the traditional method of investing in the mutual fund. What is it? That every time when you want to invest, you have to fill up an application form and submit along with a check. How do you do that? For that, either you can go directly to the mutual fund office. Most of the mutual fund, in fact, every mutual fund has offices in different cities, and within large cities, they have multiple offices. So if you have figured out which fund of a particular mutual fund you want to buy, you can approach mutual fund directly and invest there. The other option there is to find a good advisor for yourself. That advisor can be an individual, can be an advisory firm, or can be a bank. Today, almost all the banks are doing third-party distribution, including mutual funds. So you can go to any of these, and these guys will actually help you in terms of even if you're not too sure about which fund to invest in. So there are two ways through which you can invest in a traditional method. The second is you can invest online. How can you do that? You can go to a mutual fund website and you can invest online. That's only after you have decided which fund you want to invest in. Then there are many independent portals that allow you to invest in mutual funds online. So this is, again, a very, very simple method of investing in mutual funds.
Or perhaps you could invest in, say, an advisor or a distributor's online portal as well, if that is an option.
Well, there are some that provided that option also. The third method is buying mutual funds through the stock exchange. Exactly the way you buy a stock. Today, you're allowed to buy mutual funds through the stock exchange. Of course, for that, you need to have a trading account with the broker and you need to have a DP account. So exactly the way, once you've decided that which fund you want to buy in, you can just place an order with the broker and buy mutual funds. So see, it's very, very simple to invest in mutual funds.
Okay, well, it's simple, but now one thing that always, occupies the mind of a retail investor is that how much am I paying in terms of charges? So now you have categorized into three simple ways. If you could also sort of give an idea about the charges in each of them.
Well, let's talk about the traditional method. As we know, there are no entry loads now in the mutual funds. There are only running expenses which are charged, which are clearly spelled out in the regulation for equity fund and debt funds. As far as the one-time charge is concerned, some of the advisors do charge you one-time fee, but that depends on your agreement with the concerned advisor or the bank, whosoever is advising you. In case you approach the mutual fund office directly, obviously you don't have to pay any fees there. So it's cheaper going to the bank, but what happens is if you go through an advisor, you can get a lot of other help. For example, that advisor may actually send you a portfolio statement on a monthly basis, which will keep you up to date on what's happening on your portfolio. If you invest online, there are some who are charging you a fee once you go beyond a certain limit. For example, if you have a larger portfolio, there is some charge over there at times. Or in case of stock exchange, I think it's the most expensive of all three here. One is there could be a brokerage that you have to pay to the broker. The second is there are expenses related to the DP account. You pay DP, annual charges, and also you pay transaction charges. Every time you transact, you're paying charges.
All right. So that is also the reason that perhaps investors are not looking at going through mutual fund through a stock exchange route. Could that be a reason as well?
I think one of the reasons, yes. But let's face it. What do we project as mutual funds as? A mutual fund is an investment option for people who do not understand stock market generally. When we're talking about a regular or small investor.
That's true.
Now, when you tell them that you have to buy through stock exchange, they're actually, sending them exactly the same route. Many investors do not have a trading account with a broker. They do not have a demat account. And believe me, if you have to open a demat account only for the purpose of mutual fund investments, and you are not a stock market investor, it can be quite expensive. So I think investors are quite comfortable looking at traditional methods. They're not well versed with how the stock market functions. And that's the reason I think they've stayed away from that.
All right. My next question to you is, so now you have chosen, say, whatever route as far as the mutual fund is concerned. In an online route that you go to, or the other route, when is it that you become a unit holder? Exactly.
What happens is every time you make an investment, the fund house will issue an account statement to you. Okay, so if you go the traditional method or if you go online, there is an account statement that comes to you. The regulation governing the mutual fund have stipulated at least what is the time frame for each one. For example, if you invest during the NF4, okay, the mutual fund is required to issue account statement within 5 days from the closure of the NF4. For ongoing sales, that this time period is 10 days. But generally what has been seen is most of the mutual funds are able to issue account statement in 5 days. But when you invest through SIP, for the first installment is exactly the same way as the case in other lump sum investment. Thereafter, for subsequent installments, you get a statement on a quarterly basis. So in SIP, you don't get account statement for every installment that you pay, but you get a quarterly statement. So once you pay the money, money is paid out of your account, you become a unit holder. The confirmation comes by way of account statement that comes from the mutual fund to you.
And that can take about 5 days.
5 days.
Okay, so with the minute the money gets out of your bank account, you become a unit holder.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And as far as the statements with regard to your fund and various other intimations that come from the fund houses, that comes on a regular basis of, say, about a month or so, periodically.
Yeah, they do. Like apart from the account statement, there are other information that mutual funds keep sending you about their other products or about the same product. If they have to share any information with the unit holders, you keep getting those communication from the mutual funds.
And as far as knowing where your mutual fund has, where the money has gone, has been invested, what are the ways to find that out?
Well, one of the major advantages of investing in mutual fund is they're very transparent, both in terms of what they aim to achieve for you and how do they do that. If you're looking at information from the point of view of portfolio, every month the mutual fund publishes its portfolio. How do they do that? It's actually done by way of fact sheet, which are printed copies, which are available in the mutual fund offices, and they're also available with the distributors. Or you can go to the website of the mutual fund. These fact sheets are available there, which means you can see exactly where the money has been invested. And they also have the previous fact sheets also. So if somebody wants to do analysis of how the portfolio has changed over a period of time, you can do that. The same fact sheets are also available at so many other portals. Okay, it is also covered in print media as well as electronic media. There's a lot of analysis that is done on the performance and the portfolio quality of each of the scheme. So what happens at times, all this information may sound a bit like overwhelming for a small investor, but the fact that there are independent agencies who are doing analysis on it, that really helps him in terms of finding out how his fund portfolio is doing.
Well, on that note, Hemant, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in just a bit. We'll be taking up your queries, and we'll be also addressing some concerns that will be in the mind of some of the mutual fund investors given the environment that we are in. We'll be back in just a bit.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay IPF.
Welcome back to Financial Planner. Well, we've been going through some tough times. If you look at the equity markets, if you look at the various global news that is coming up, which is raising some concerns in the mind of retail investors. But most often than not, unfortunately, retail investors, rather than taking the opportunities that are available, get worried, and that is what we are going to be addressing with our expert here. And Hemant, what is exactly that I'm going to be talking about right now, in the interest of investors right now, and taking a shift from the way we do the show, is that, every time when the markets go down is when the investors get worried and take out their money, even if sometimes they're making a loss. Your experience being part of the industry for such a long period of time, what is the advice that you'd like to give to retail investors at this point in time?
Well, fortunately, things have changed a lot in the last few years. Yes, there was a time when every time the market would go down, investors would want to get out of the, equity investment. What has happened is in the last 3-4 years or maybe 5 years, we have seen more and more investors taking SIP route for investing in mutual funds. Now, what it really means is that investors have been investing regularly on a monthly basis, which means that they have been getting benefit of averaging. Now, what happened last time also in 2008 and 9, many investors got panicked and they actually stopped their SIPs, which is the worst thing to do. Why do you invest through SIP? You invest because you want to benefit from different levels of the market. These are the times when the markets are down, where you get more units for the same amount that you have been investing. So my advice would be that if you are a disciplined investor, if you're a long-term investor, there is no need to panic. We have seen it so many times in the equity markets. The markets have crashed, have gone down, and have come back smartly. That is what equity markets are all about. So my advice would be, if you're a disciplined long-term investor, continue the process irrespective of the market conditions, because like I said, it's only a disciplined investor who would be investing in these times. The casual investor or a one-time investor generally would stay away from a market like this. So I think carry on with your process, and that's where I think you'll get the maximum benefit.
And also, if you're looking at your funds from an SIP point of view, and you're seeing suddenly that because of the fall in the markets, your NAV has gone drastically down, doesn't mean that this is the time that you take out even at booking loss, which is the mistake that most investors do, perhaps at times like this. So as you're saying, that SIP, if you have an SIP, continue with an SIP and do not, like perhaps previous time when we'd seen investors looking at withdrawal, is something that they should keep away with. But as far as new investors are concerned, or investors who perhaps have some money that is lying with them, which they could perhaps invest, there is an opportunity there, right? There
is. In fact, I believe strongly that anyone who wants to invest in equity market or equity funds, there is no right time or wrong time, because investing in equity is a long-term process. It's not a one-time activity. That's where I think most of the investors make a mistake. It has to be considered as a long-time process. Now, what it does, yes, there is opportunity today. We have seen the markets gone down. There is definitely an opportunity here, but I would not advise someone to follow a philosophy of doing event-based investing. That can be very, very dangerous, because that actually amounts to timing the market. Yes, but definitely if you have 100 rupees to invest, my suggestion is that you can definitely invest 40 to 50 rupees at these levels, but follow it up with a regular investment. If you do that,
you can look at an SIP right now.
Oh, absolutely. You invest some lump sum, because these are good levels to invest. But I'm not saying invest all your 100 rupees today. Invest 40 to 50 rupees as one time, and the rest can be invested. If you have a lump sum, you can invest through STP, or you can do SIP. Always follow it up. Follow the process of investing regularly, because equity is not about one investment and then forget about it. That's where I think, if you see in the last 4 years, many investors have not made money. The reason for that is that they invested at the peak of the market. They didn't follow it up subsequently. Because you didn't follow it up, you couldn't average your investment. And so you're still seeing your portfolio maybe down, or in a scene where you've not made any money at all.
Well, that's the advice coming in from Hemant, as he says that do not worry, do not panic. These events are not something that should drive your investment decisions. Continue with your SIP, and if you have some sort of money that is lying for investment, perhaps a part of it could be looked at investing in an SIP, or you could put a lump sum money and then use an STP route. This is the advice coming in, and as financial planners and as this show is for the investors, this is just a caution, and so that you do not panic in the times that we're seeing right now.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange.
Welcome back to Financial Planner. It's that time that we take up your queries.
Investment Ladder, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Well, Hemant, we have a query from this gentleman called Cedric. He's a 54 years old retired bank employee, and he's already looked at various, made an investment plan. He's in a process of moving 35% of his retirement savings from bank FDs to mutual funds. That's what he intends to do. His investment horizon is for 12 years, and his purpose of investing is growth and also at the same time to beat inflation. Now, he's taken care of other investment avenues, he says, like a PPF, ELSS, balance fund, bank FDs, and medical insurance. So he's taken care of that aspect. This is purely for an investment point of view. He says he started investing with 12,000 rupees per month in 4 mutual fund schemes, which are ICICI Prudential Focus Blue Chip Fund, Franklin India Blue Chip Fund, HDFC Equity, and UTI Dividend Yield Fund. So these are the 4 funds that he is investing in, through an SIP. He'd like to choose one more fund that would mix well in the given portfolio that he has. And the 5th fund would also help him sort of restrict his investment to 20% in each AMC, is his motive. Now, he's also given us the choice of funds that he has selected and done his homework. And he is talking about that which, in your opinion, would be a better choice from 3 funds to invest another 12,000 rupees every month, which is Reliance Opportunities Fund, Birla Sun Life Dividend Yield Fund, and IDFC Premier Equity Fund. More importantly, he says that since the money for investing is already available with me, what would be the ideal period for me to complete the 35% portion of savings in mutual fund? That is 12, 24, 36, 48 months. These are the questions that Cedric has for us, and your views now on that.
Well, I think firstly I would like to touch upon a very important aspect. As he said, he's moving 35% of the money in order to beat inflation, which is a very, very important point. Many retired investors or people who retired, stay away from equities, thinking that, since they've retired, they shouldn't be taking risk at all, which is completely wrong. I think equities have a role to play even in the portfolio of a retired person. The reason being that, why do you have equity in the portfolio? Because you want to, that's one asset class that allows you to beat inflation. The inflation worry is not only when you're working. Inflation is more of a worry actually after you retire, because you don't have income, the kind of income you were having earlier, and you have to rely on whatever corpus you have created over a period of time, which means that a part of your portfolio has to be in equity. Of course, the key is not to get carried away and invest too much of money in the equity, because the focus also has to be on preserving whatever you have accumulated over a period of time. But every retired person must have some part of the portfolio in equities. As far as his 4 funds are concerned, I think broadly I would say he has made a good selection. But I can give him one suggestion here is that he has a fund called Franklin Blue Chip Fund, which is a very old fund and has a good track record. But I believe that HDFC Top 200, which is essentially a large cap fund, but invests around 10 to 15% in mid cap, considering the kind of performance it has been giving and the kind of investment, well-defined investment universe it has, I think that can be a better option. So he can look at changing one fund out of those 4. As far as the 5th,
he has HDFC Equity already. So would you be recommending that instead of Franklin India Blue Chip Fund, he should look at HDFC Top 200?
Yeah, that's what exactly I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. While he has mentioned about that he would like to restrict his exposure to 20% for a mutual fund, well, I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, the fund is good. You can actually have 2 funds or 3 funds in the same mutual fund. Obviously, you don't have to go overboard, but there is no hard and fast rule that you must restrict it to 15-20%. So he can look at that. As far as the 5th fund is concerned, the fact that he's a retired person, I think he should stay away from very aggressive funds. You know, equity as an asset class is aggressive. You don't have to make your portfolio very aggressive. It's not necessary that every time you take more risk, you'll get more reward. So I think he is already having one dividend yield fund. He should not be including the second dividend yield fund there. He should also not consider IDFC, even though it's one of the best mid-cap fund. But it doesn't suit his profile. He can go with the Reliance Equity Opportunity, which is a multi-cap fund, but slightly aggressive because it's an opportunity fund, which is all right, which will fit into the kind of portfolio he has. So these are the 5 funds he can have as far as his investment in mutual fund is concerned.
Well, all right, Hemant, like Hemant just now said, that, you know, when you're looking at retirement, it does not necessarily mean that you do not have equity as a part of your investment, because perhaps that's also an important time period where you need to beat inflation and therefore have the equity component in your investment portfolio. If you too, like Cedric, have any queries for us, please do write into us and we'll be addressing your queries with our expert here.
Investment Ladder, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Well, that's all we have in the show this week. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with more on Financial Planner.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.